Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a really interesting, little more old school combo to try out, and I actually kind of think it might surprise us and give us a pretty decent pattern overall. It definitely could be disappointing, but from what we've seen from this choke and these shells in previous testing, it actually might not be the worst combo, that's for sure. But first up, for the shells that I got today, I brought out some more of these old Federal Mag-Shok turkey loads. They don't make the Mag-Shok line anymore, but these were one of the better turkey loads out there, say 15 years ago or so. But these ones are a 12 gauge, 3-inch, 2-ounce payload of lead 4s at about 1175 feet per second. And they are a copper plated and buffered load with a full length wad. These ones did not use the flight control wad. They did have some of this era that did use the flight control wad. These ones do not, but the last time we tested these shells, they actually showed some pretty decent results, at least on par with something like a Winchester XX type of performance. I don't expect Longbeard XR performance from them, but I'm definitely curious to see what they do through today's choke. But as for our setup today, I brought out my Remington 1187. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it, and as for that choke, we've got this guy. This is an old school Remington Turkey Extra full. It's a 687 constriction, so definitely not nearly as tight as a lot of other aftermarket style turkey chokes are, but this one's pretty interesting. I don't know if you can really tell there on the camera or not, but it is essentially a flush choke that's double the length. The outer diameter is the same as a flush choke. You don't have that kind of ridge that sits flush with the end of the barrel. You can kind of see there the end of the actual muzzle of the barrel and how it's just one long flush choke essentially. Pretty interesting design. Nothing fancy going on the inside. It's just a smooth constriction, and this is kind of from the same era as what these shells were, and with it being a 687 and those being a lead 4, it could work out surprisingly well. This choke has already shown us some very nice looking results from some old Winchester Supreme loads, I believe it was. So definitely a pretty interesting combo, and you really don't see people running these chokes at all. At least not anymore, that's for sure. So we'll see what this combo can give us, because it might be a little surprising. But as for our test today, everything's going to be the same as usual. I've got the turkey target at 40 yards and the chrono so we can get the velocity. So let's get you guys a view of that target, and we'll see what this little bit more old school Federal Mag-Shok with a Remington 687 Turkey Extra full choke can actually give us. I hope it surprises us and gives us some pretty nice results, but let's take our shot and see what we get. Okay, that show gave us 1198 through the chrono. Boss claim is 1175. However, we do have a 28-inch barrel with a little bit of choke out of the end. So I think we're seeing about what we should be. So it looks good for a velocity here for a lead 4. But how did we actually pattern down there at 40 through that combo? Let's go check it out and see. All right, so here we are down at our 40-yard target, and we didn't quite get the results that I was hoping to see. Do we have a dead bird? Yes, we do. There are 2 through the brain, kind of just below the eyeball, and several more down the spine that would have done the job. So I guess you could call this a 40-yard capable turkey pattern, but it is not anywhere near a good looking turkey pattern as a whole. Looking at the entire thing here, it is much more akin to a waterfowl pattern. If we could still use lead for waterfowl, that combo right there would be a pretty good one, because it is a pretty even spread across the entire paper, but that's the problem. You put your pellets across the entire paper, which is not exactly what you want for a turkey combo. I just don't think that 687 extra full is quite enough to really bring these shells down some. We've seen way better from both that shell and choke before with different combinations. I was hoping this would work out better, but I guess it's not entirely surprising either, considering what it is. Sometimes these lead loads, the more basic ones or the older ones, prefer that little tighter choke to really bring them in and actually constrict them down. We were pretty centered up on our paper. If we look at our core area, which, well, we really don't have one, it's enough pellets to do the job. There's nowhere that bird can move to and get through that pattern, but you may very well cover the meat and hit other turkeys around him as well. As we move outside of that, it pretty much remains the same story, just kind of shot all over the place. No real core, no real definition of a shape of the pattern, just a little bit of all over the place. Would make a great wing shooting pattern for sure, but turkey combo, not exactly what I'm looking to see here. I thought coming into it, that those shells and that choke being from the same era might help work together a little bit, and that little bit less constriction with a lead 4 could work out in our favor. But this is a good example on why you test stuff before you just take it out in the woods, because you can think it might do well, but you don't really know until you try it. I guess in hindsight, it's not really too surprising for the same reasons I just mentioned, for what kind of shell it is and how it probably is going to prefer a little more choke. I still really enjoy testing that particular choke for whatever reason or another. It's one of my favorites, although we haven't done a ton of testing with it. I just like it for one reason or another, personally anyway. It's just weird enough and interesting enough for it to be fun. But this combo didn't work out how I thought it would. And here's the wad out of that shell. Very typical Federal equipment. It looks and feels very similar to what you get from a lot of their buckshot loads and stuff today. Probably is pretty similar to the same wad, but you can see a little buffer material down in there. Other than that, no major damage or anything. It's not a super tight choke. No porting or nothing like that in there to snag up on, so the wad looks perfectly fine overall. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? Not exactly what I was hoping to see, but looking at it in hindsight, I'm not exactly surprised either, really. It's just not enough choke constriction for what these shells are going to want, but it is pretty interesting though. We've seen tighter patterns from those shells through other chokes. We've also seen much better patterns with other shells through this choke as well. Just think, the same early to mid 2000s era with the Winchester Supreme and the extended high density loads and stuff that we've tested through that choke. It's the same era as the choke and these Federal shells are, but those are a much better performer through this particular choke combo. So even back then, looks like Winchester was probably making a little better of a turkey shell than what Federal was putting out. So pretty interesting results, all things considered. I'm willing to bet if we run something like a Longbeard XR load through that choke, I bet it's going to be pretty impressive there as well. But when it comes to these Federals, they just want more choke at the end of the day. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you ever ran any of these old Federal Mag-Shok loads or one of those old Remington Turkey Extra full 687 chokes? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Is that a pattern or combo you would hunt with, or is it just too broad for you to want to take out turkey hunting? And what other shell and choke combos do you want to see with either that particular old 687 or those Federal shells? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.